Coming up on CarAdvice, Rule Britannia, we review the stunning 2019 Range Rover Evoque on the eve of its Australian launch.
And EV flatmates or the odd couple. Paul Marrick spends 6 months living with the Jaguar I-Pace in the inner city.
And a muscle car-inspired EV with over 600 kilometres of range. What will Ford bring to the EV table?
Hello, I'm Trent Nikolic. Welcome to Car Advice. Thank you for joining us. Plenty to look at again this week in the world of motoring, starting with the Range Rover Evoque that I test drove in Greece. That was a tough couple of days out of the office, mate.
The food sounded terrible,
It was absolutely awful, yeah. The Jaguar I-Pace long-termer that you're running down in Melbourne, we're going to take a closer look at that. And we're also going to talk about a pure electric Mustang, which might not make a lot of sense to you because technically we don't always go straight to muscle cars when it comes to electric vehicles, but that's what Ford is thinking for the new Mustang. But first up, let's get straight into some interesting news. Great Wall has recently released some images of a new dual cab ute. Now, they're talking about a pure electric version, which I'm a little sceptical about, to be completely honest with you. However, the most interesting one is the turbo diesel that I think is really going to take the fight to a lot of the other established players in the market.
Let's not gloss over this. They reckon they're going to have a 500 kilometre range electric ute.
No.
Now, I have high hopes, but I highly doubt that's ever going to happen.
Yeah.
But let's wait and see. I'm really looking forward to that. This new ute is going to share a platform with the upcoming H9 or a similar platform.
Yep.
And it really needs it because the last Great Wall Steed was quite genuinely rubbish. Like I drove that from Adelaide to Melbourne and there were so many times where I felt unsafe in terms of the power delivery. It was really underdone.
It's just absolutely gutless, the engine, wasn't it? That was the big problem.
Yeah, really concerning. So, and it was a poor car to crash. It was just really not a good thing at all. So this one they really need to do well because their other Chinese sort of stablemates, LDV, are doing a really good job with the T60. So it really is an important car for them. They haven't yet confirmed the engine, but it appears that it could be the engine used in the H9 previously, which was around 440 newton metres of torque, which is enough punch to get things
That's more like it, isn't it? That's
exactly.
more like it. And I mean, if they can release that with the right kind of off-road credentials and the right kind of work credentials, so we're hearing 3,000 kilo towing capacity as a minimum, maybe higher than that. That'll be important as well. But I think that power delivery and the engine performance is a big one. So advice at caradvice.com if you've bought a Chinese ute or you're looking at a Chinese ute. Tell us what got you over the line or what stopped you from buying one. We'd love to hear it. One of the things a lot of the manufacturers have been doing, and I think Audi may have been the first to do it, you know, in a general sense, is simplifying options packs. So with an Audi, you can go and say, I want that car and I want that options pack. Holden recently announced that they're doing exactly that with the Colorado, and as you'd expect, these are more off-road focused packs. So let's take a look at them, mate. I think they start from just over $2,000, don't they?
Yeah, it's a clever ploy because what you can do with your Colorado is take it to someone and go, here's 20 grand, go and do stuff to it. Sure, they may warrant it, but Holden, when you go take it in to get serviced, if you've got some whiz-bang thing on the front there that's blocking air delivery to the engine and the engine goes kaput, you can imagine Holden's response. So these accessory packs are going to be covered by Holden's warranty, and you've got 5 of them to choose from there: the tradie pack, the farmer pack, the rig pack, the black pack, and then that thing there, the Z71 Extreme, which looks...
It looks great.
Absolutely incredible.
Looks
I reckon
good,
it looks
doesn't it?
tough as nails. So it is an interesting concept there from Holden, and I think it's one that will take off because traditionally Holden has offered these accessory packs for quite some time. But getting people in there, they really don't know what to pick. I mean, I'm terrible at designing
that
things.
with that and, you know, that with that. I think what Holden's done here, which I think is really clever, this has got a bit of Harley Davidson about it. They realised that everyone else was modifying their bike and making millions of dollars and thought, hang on, we can have a piece of that. That's what Holden's doing here. I mean, if you look at that Extreme pack there, things like all-terrain tyres, winch bar systems, side steps, fender flares, all that stuff, that's what people are having fitted to their dual cab utes anyway, aren't they?
Yeah, isn't a mattress holder on the roof? You can put your swag on there.
You put your swag up there or a rooftop tent. Advice at caradvice.com. Let us know whether you would actually have a dealer installed pack on a dual cab ute. Doesn't matter whether it's a Holden, could be any brand, or whether you'd rather do it yourself. I'm loving this one, mate. This is an announcement that I don't know anybody saw coming, to be honest with you. It's very, very cool. So Ford's confirmed an all-electric descendant of the Mustang, and they're claiming it'll go 600 kilometres between charges. So that is seriously impressive.
Yeah, they're saying it's a Mustang-inspired SUV. My favourite thing in the world, though, was they kind of hijacked Tesla's conference for the Model Y. So I was sitting there patiently on my laptop waiting for, I think it was 3 p.m. to roll around for Tesla's live reveal of the Model Y. Due to a technical issue, there was a massive delay of something like 20 or 30 minutes, and I called it quits and just left. But in the interim, Ford put out a tweet, and it was effectively a picture of the pony, and it said, "Hold your horses."
Ah, clever.
So kind of referring to the delay, but also referring to their announcement here that they're doing an electric car. And they reckon it will do 600 kilometres on the WLTP cycle, which means this is a serious chunk of range here for a car that is set to be sporty if it's going to be Mustang-oriented.
And I'll tell you one thing, whether or not this actually comes to fruition or it's just a pie-in-the-sky way of grabbing some headlines or not, if Ford is talking about a pure electric descendant of the Mustang, you can almost bet that they're absolutely looking at a hybrid version of the Mustang.
Yeah,
so they may run a new version of the Mustang itself with a hybrid powertrain, V8 petrol combined with some kind of electric propulsion. They'd almost certainly be looking at that if they're deflecting some attention over this way. Is that true?
Exactly. I would think so. And that means more acceleration paired with more noise probably. So, yeah, it's only a good thing.
And some of the supercar manufacturers, like Lamborghini, for example, have said that for them, it's hybrids that's the future, not necessarily pure electric for them. So they're looking at hybridisation again with their V12 engine. And I tell you what, the Mustang's a pretty awesome car. If they included an electric engine with that V8, that'd be serious. Advice at caradvice.com. Would you buy a hybrid muscle car? And if so, why? I was overseas recently. One of the very, very difficult things we have to do at CarAdvice is travel overseas to test drive these cars in amazing
Someone
locations.
has to do it, though.
The 2019 Range Rover Evoque, test drove it in Greece. Amazing roads, amazing off-road terrain. The fastest selling Range Rover of all time, and there were some in-jokes made by the
Evoque?
people. Yes. Yeah, fastest selling Range Rover of all time. The in-jokes that were made were someone within marketing said they'd sell 30,000 in the first year. They actually sold 100,000. And Jerry McGovern said, that guy doesn't work here anymore. And they went to sell a record 125,000 in 1 year. They're just about to sell, I think, 800,000 of them in total.
Are you serious?
Globally. It is crazy. This thing has been immensely popular. And I said for that reason early on in my review, no pressure on the new one then.
Well, exactly. And I've noticed as well with the new one, you're looking at the picture there, it kind of looks exactly like the old one.
See, now don't say that to Jerry McGovern.
Well,
the two things the lead designer impressed upon us, and we love Jerry, we think he's fantastic. Two things he impressed upon us are, one, don't assume that it looks like the old one. He doesn't want to hear that.
Don't need to assume, I can tell it looks like the old one.
He also said, don't tell people it looks like a pared down Velar.
That was actually going to be my second point.
You also said off air, though, that you've got no eye for design or creative flair.
Absolutely correct.
So,
that is
pay no
100%
attention
right.
to what he's about to say.
No, look, I think it's a really good design, and the fact that it looks like a dumbed-down Velar is also good because the Velar is absolutely stunning.
Beautiful.
So you've got the door handles that come out of the car that you grab onto. It sits on an all-new platform as well. That's the thing that blew me away the most, that you think to yourself, well, it may look similar to the old one. They have completely revolutionised it. And the other thing that it's also now bringing to the table is the potential for plug-in hybrid and even a full EV variant based on this platform, right?
Yeah, so we test drove the mild hybrid at launch, and you're right there about that platform. Range Rover calls it transverse premium architecture, I think. So what's most impressive is the way that it drives. So the mild hybrid was excellent, really liked it. We test drove both diesel and petrol. But this feels to me, I mean, obviously it's exceptional off-road, okay?
Yep.
In Greece, we drove it in some really tough off-road terrain, as you'd expect, and it was excellent. But where it impressed me most was actually on the sealed roads. So we went on some twisty mountain roads, which are part of the Acropolis Rally in the WRC.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
That's
so
cool.
they're seriously tight mountain roads, and this thing was pretty good. It was really impressive.
I mean, that's where Land Rover's heading with their products. They used to just be big old barges that were heavy and luxurious. Now they're actually adding that agility into it. And when you see some of their SVR products and the SV line, they really need to focus their efforts on making these cars really drivable. And now, we mentioned there the mild hybrid system. If you've never heard that before, it's typically a 48-volt system. So your regular car battery is 12 volt.
That's it.
And sometimes that's not enough voltage, not enough current to be able to run some of the systems in the car. By stepping it up to 48 volts, it gives you a bit more freedom in terms of storing energy for later use, also running systems that allow the car to switch off at something like 20 k's an hour when it rolls to a stop. They're very resource intensive because you still have to have full control of the steering. All of your electronic systems still have to work. So a mild hybrid system may sound like just a throwaway phrase, but it's actually quite a complicated and intricate setup beneath the skin.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the subject of that technicality, that system works really well. It's quite seamless.
Yep.
You don't even notice that it's going on. But there was a big thing for me with this new one is the infotainment. So we've often criticised Range Rover, Land Rover, Jaguar products for not really even matching the segment, let alone setting any standards. But I think this has got a lot of technology that I think will set standards. So it's got an incredibly innovative rear view mirror in the centre of the car that you, with the flick of a switch, goes to a really high definition video
cool.
showing you what's happening behind you. And it's amazing because this vehicle was criticised, the old platform, for poor rear visibility.
It's got like a letterbox at the
Right,
back,
so they fixed that with this widescreen rear view mirror. You've got two 10-inch screens. The central one accommodates Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. The one below it, all the vehicle functionality like the air conditioning and the off-road and drive settings, all that kind of stuff. You've got these cameras that give you what Land Rover calls a see-through bonnet, so you can see what the wheels are doing.
Cool.
It's really cool. So when you're off-road, you can see where the tyres are and you can position them exactly where you want them. So I think now this could potentially be a tech leader for the segment, but I also think it could be a tech leader for larger Range Rover products, because this is debuting technology that you can't even currently get on a full-size Range Rover. So maybe Land Rover here is saying, hang on, we'll put it in the Evoque first and then we'll filter it up the chain rather than the other way around.
Isn't that funny?
It is.
Mercedes-Benz did the same thing with the A-Class that debuted MBUX, which is their all-new revolutionary infotainment system. Instead of debuting it in something like an S-Class, it seems that they realise some of these buyers are perhaps younger, tech-savvy people that want all the latest gizmos and gadgets, and they won't necessarily be forking out $300,000 for the big Range Rover. So you may as well get all that fun stuff into here and then filter it out through the rest of the range.
Now, I know what you're going to ask me. Do you want me to tell you what you're going to ask me?
Please, because I'm not sure.
What's it going to cost, Trent?
How much is it going to cost?
I told you you're going to ask me that. It starts off at just over $60,000, so $62,670.
I know this trick. Is that with like no features?
That's without windows and a steering wheel and no tyres. But it rounds out at $96,000 at the top end. And as always, the issue that you're going to have to take into account here is the cost of the options. So two things. The options will be expensive. Land Rover used to have something like 52 variants of this car. They've pared that back to 26, which that's good, isn't it? Yeah. It's still probably 20 too many, but they reckon it's enough. So let us know, advice@caradvice.com. What do you think of the look of the new Range Rover Evoque? And how do you feel about the way that Jaguar Land Rover does its option systems? If you own one, let us know how you work your way through that minefield. I recently had someone say to me, a viewer to the show clearly, or a listener to one of our radio programs, you hate electric cars, you don't like them, you obviously don't drive them. So much so that we've installed charging devices in both our Sydney and Melbourne office, and you have now taken ownership, in inverted commas, of a Jaguar I-Pace for 6 months, because if we're saying something great, we want to know we've tested it. If we're saying something's not so great, we want to know we've tested it. And with EVs, the whole idea with this long-term test was to get a sense of what it's like to live with one, because it's vastly different having one over that period than it is having it for a week, isn't it?
Yeah, I've said continuously, motoring journalists, you should never read a review of an EV from a motoring journalist. Why? Because it's generally completely unrealistic. And the reason is they'll take it home and plug it into a 10 amp outlet. And some of the reviews I've seen have been, I saw one review where they took it to a Tesla supercharger, the Jaguar here, and plugged it in.
Wondered why it didn't work.
It's a complete lack of research, and it just shows they have zero understanding of it all. So what we wanted to do, and I'm in the same boat here, I'm an engineer, but to me, the whole concept of EVs, I needed to get my head around it. So we asked Jag for an I-Pace. We took one of these basically as soon as it landed in Australia. We've got it for about 6 to 12 months. And what we're also doing with it is I'm living at home with it. So my wife's driving it, I'm driving it. We live in an apartment, and that has typically been the exclusion point for EVs. So we wanted to see how that all works. So you're looking at a picture there of The iPace at home for me, that's my parking space. And in the background there, you'll see a charging box. So after going through our body corporate, and that was another stumbling block as well, because the body corporate didn't quite understand how this would work, how the electricity would work. We finally got there and we have a car with a charging box.
And we've said this before, and we'll repeat it again here because it's pertinent to this particular vehicle review. In our opinion, if you're buying an electric car, and that starts from the most affordable, which is the Ioniq at under $50,000 before on-road costs, if you're buying an electric car and you don't have a wall box like that, similar to that, installed at home, you're probably missing the point entirely.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because unlike petrol, which is difficult to transport yourself and difficult to take home, you can top your car up at home if you've got an electric vehicle. And that, for me, is one of the strongest advantages to them. So often when you hear this talk about superchargers and a supercharger network and who's going to pay for the infrastructure and how long is it going to take, all of that's a moot point to me if you take the car home every night and plug it up. Because with the case of the Jaguar, you've got about 400 kilometre range, haven't you, best case scenario. Unless you're doing more than that in a day and you're not going home, this will be perfect if you take it home every night and plug it in and charge it.
That's it. We've done about 6,000 Ks already, and that's over just a few months. Over Christmas, we were driving the tyres off it, so I spent a fair bit of time on the road. I've done several trips to Euroa, which is a good 200 Ks away from Melbourne, to test out some of the supercharging options as well. I've been really impressed with this car. It sets a benchmark in terms of dynamic performance on the road. You can throw it around. It has an incredible electric propulsion system that's driving both the front and rear wheels. It allows you to get along nicely, and it's nice and fast as well. But the thing that's kind of impressed me the most is the setup at home. So we used a company called JetCharge to install this infrastructure, and they've created what's called the ChargeFox network. So the box there cost around $1,500. The electrician was about $1,000, give or take, because they have to do a run through to the switchboard. I then take power from the body corporate, but the box and the ChargeFox network allows it to be remotely monitored. I then pay ChargeFox each month for how much power I'm using, and that power is then automatically paid to the body corporate. So it's a sort of no cost to anyone else in the building.
Have you had a look yet, or been able to have a look yet at approximately what you're spending on charging?
So our first quarter of charges are yet to come through, but it's around a third of the cost of basically doing the same distance in an internal combustion car. Now, there are a couple of downsides though. My body corporate, I don't know where the power comes from. So if they're just on the cheapest power plan, we'll be generating electricity from coal. Obviously, running this car on coal isn't quite as efficient as an efficient diesel or petrol car.
Environmentally friendly, It's 70% more energy intensive than a normal conventional car when it comes off the production line. So ideally, what you want is access to the greenest possible energy to start bringing that number down as soon as you start driving it. That's what you want,
exactly.
isn't it?
So every day you drive, you are going to be helping the environment, but that's predicated on you using green energy. I have no choice over that with the body corporate. So obviously, if you live in a home, you can choose where your power comes from. The other stumbling block as well is going to be over time. We've got 100 and something residents in our building. Obviously, there's a certain amount of power you can pull from a switchboard before you overload it. We're still doing the sums on this, but it'll probably be around the 20 car mark before we need to look as a body corporate at upgrading the main switchboard. So that's something that needs to be thought about, but new buildings are accommodating more and more of this stuff as we go.
Yeah, now the other thing that I've had an issue with when I've been test driving electric cars is understanding if you do need a quick charge at a supercharging network, which plug fits what, and whether the supercharger will accommodate your vehicle. And that is a real world pain in the neck in a way for people until you work it out, isn't it?
It is, and that's the thing. First 2 or 3 months with the car, I was kind of looking at the Plug Share app, which is the app that tells you where all the chargers are, and I'd be like, oh, there's one sort of just there, there's one here. But more often than not, it's the wrong plug type. So there is a solution to this. Most of Australia is now moving to what they call a Type 2 plug, and that's what the Jag has. It also has a CCS Type 2 plug. So that's the plug that allows DC fast charging. And that will mean that most chargers in the future will support that. Most Tesla destination chargers support Type 2 as well. So when I did a tarmac rally in this car, which you'll be able to go to a place that has perhaps a Tesla charger, you'll be able to then plug this car in as well.
And charge it quickly. Advice at CarAdvice.com. As I said, we've got this car for a longer period of time. If there's anything you want to know about the iPace, let us know at advice at CarAdvice.com, and Paul will get on to testing it for you. Okay, Paul, viewer email times. We've got a good question here about the Subaru Outback.
Yep.
Hi guys, absolutely love your show. Thank you, Simone. Appreciate you watching and would love you to rate the 2019 Diesel 2.0 over the petrol model Outback 2.5i. Currently waiting on my newbie. I did choose the diesel because I want this one to be a keeper, and Simone is worried that she might have made the wrong choice.
Well, I was about to say, before you even got to that bit, I would have chosen the diesel.
Absolutely.
Just because the 2.5, I reckon, is... it's just a tiny bit underdone in the Outback, and the reason this car's so good with a diesel is you get incredible efficiency and you get the punch of the diesel engine. Like, it is a really hearty and neat diesel. And I just love the Outback in general. I think it's a really good thing.
Yep.
Only thing to take note of, though, is an email has just come through saying that they've released the new one at the New York Motor Show. So if you've already ordered one, there's not much you can do about it now, but just keep an eye on what the new one is going to have.
We think the diesel that Subaru's put together is a really good thing. It has been for a while. I think the first time I ever drove their diesel would have been in the Outback, and I was really impressed with it then. And you know, it's just a good thing. It's a really, really good thing. I remember the Outback at the time might have been the first diesel boxer engine, if that sounds about right. It was a while ago now, and it just has been getting better and better. And I think the point you made there is right. The petrol engine does what it needs to do, but the diesel is a little better, a little punchier. And Simone, you made the point there. You said that you had more drive and grunt in the diesel that you had previously. I think the Golf that you had previously. So no fear, made the right choice. Not a problem at all. You're going to love your new Subaru Outback. Well, Paul, that's all we've got time.
Sorry, Trent.
Yeah, no, so see...
I'm going to stop you there for a second.
Okay, right.
We do have time for one more. And this one's actually directed at you. And this was in relation to our elderly drivers article. So we spoke about how our elderly drivers are overrepresented in crash statistics, and we suggested perhaps that retesting was the way to go.
That's a fact, actually. Overrepresented in crash statistics. That's a fact. And we also suggested we put the flak jackets on, didn't we, at that time?
This one's particularly for you from John, a valued viewer.
John. Yep, thanks, John. Thanks for watching, John.
It was, hello, Trent, you imbecile.
Nice.
Driving a car is a right. Once you have obtained your licence, it's not a privilege. It drives me bonkers when idiots repeat this ridiculous statement, driving is a privilege.
Well, gee, John, at 43 years of age, that's the first time, believe it or not, I've ever been called an imbecile. So well done on that one, champ. Good work. Secondly, you're wrong. It is a privilege, not a right, because if it was a right, they wouldn't be able to take it off you if you did something wrong, John, which they can do for about, last time I checked, 6,385 different offences if you add them up. So, yeah, that's wrong. Go on. Yeah, did John get back to us with some more feedback?
Yeah, so John continued on insisting that it is in fact a right and not a privilege.
No, he's wrong.
And he signed off by saying, whatever, you're wrong, and a little man.
A little man.
That's also factually incorrect.
That
if you can have a look at him here.
I'm a little overweight, actually, John, so that's very offensive.
But look, the only factual part about his email was, P.S. I love the show.
Yep.
Well, at least the bits that you're not in.
Well, that makes two of us, John. I'd rather watch someone else than myself anyway. You prefer the bits I'm not into, don't
pretty
you?
much.
Yeah. That's some good creative writing there, John. I'd keep that up. That was really good. Look, if they're overrepresented in crash statistics, and one of the favourite things that older drivers used to say is, hang on a second, young people are, on their P-plates speeding and having accidents left, right and centre. Well, no, that recent study that we saw, that rate has been dropping and the level of older drivers in accidents has been going up. And just before you respond to that, I didn't say older drivers should be retested, John. I said all drivers should be retested. So I'm talking about people like myself and Paul, anybody else, because I flat out disagree with the idea that at 60, 70, 80 years of age, even at 50 years of age, you could still remember all the rules that you learnt when you were 18 or know all the rules that have changed. Now, this could be a driving aptitude test, but it also could just be an online one, and no one's saying they're going to take your licence from you. But what we're saying is you should know the road rules. I don't see how that's an imposition on people.
Yeah, and I mean, with the government, they have put in place measures for younger drivers that were overrepresented in crash statistics. So you had limits on the number of passengers you could have, mobile phones in the car, a whole statute of changes there, and they have helped reduce crashes. So there is something that needs to be done, but like we said, everyone should be retested. And that's the thing, we do continuous driver training at work. We are better for it because we are always always ready to learn.
Yeah.
And we think that everyone in Australia should be doing the same thing every 3 to 4 years. One email we did get, though, that was an interesting point. Who should be paying for that? Obviously, older drivers may be on the pension and not have that disposable income. You shouldn't be forcing them to have to repay.
No, I think it puts safer drivers on the road, so let's get the government paying for
That's
it,
it, I mean-
which is our taxpayer money, but let's get the government paying for it.
Exactly.
Absolutely, because
the less
we all
crashes
want...
you have, the cheaper it is.
And we all make mistakes. You know, everybody gets booked for speeding, or, you know, people make mistakes. They do the wrong thing on the road. No, not everyone can know all of the rules. It's not about that, but it's about educating people to be better drivers. In the meantime, John, advice at caradvice.com. You've got a week to see whether you can come up with something better than imbecile, because that was a little on the weak side. Paul, that's all we've got time for. Thank you for joining us, mate. Thanks for watching again. We'll see you the same time next week, 7:30 p.m. Wednesday nights on Your Money.